Hey everybody, it's Yatavio back again with another gear review. This time it's talking about delay pedals, and specifically I just recently got my hands on the MXR Carbon Copy analog delay pedal, and I realized that for all of my interest in analog synthesizers and kind of love of analog things in general, this is the first time I actually had a chance to work with and own a true analog delay pedal. In the past I'd owned these two little boxes, the Zoom CDR, the MS-70CDR, I should say, and the Digitech DL-8 delay pedal. The Zoom kind of works with a digital, like a DSP processing to emulate a bunch of effects pedals, and the DL-8 is specifically a delay pedal and uses Digitech's own kind of whatever digital microcomputing to come up with the emulations of a few different delay types. And so the more I thought about it, the more I wondered, with all these emulations, how close have they really gotten to the real thing? So I decided to test it out in this video. What I'm doing is I have my Epiphone DOT, so it's like an ES335 model guitar with Gibson Classic 57 pickups and flat wound strings. Through this effects chain into my Ibanez TSA-15 tube amplifier. I am going to use this compressor pedal because I feel like it really brings out the punchiness and the kind of sound of modulation effects with clean signal. And we're just going to test it out. So here's what the MXR sounds like well, first off, let me give you just a true clean sound. And here's with the MXR engaged. So if you hear, you can listen, you can hear the effect of this. Essentially what's going on, there's no computer chips in here, it's all capacitors and the configuration called a bucket brigade that's essentially hanging on to the audio signal and spitting it back out to create this echo effect. And because it's happening with actual electrical components, that signal is degrading a little bit each time it gets repeated, which gives you that nice warm kind of degrading, which sounds bad, but just kind of fading sound, let's say, as it reverberates out. It loses a little bit of its fidelity. And the way the pedal is set up is pretty simple. You've got the mix knob that controls how much of the wet or dry it is. You've got delay, which affects the delay time, so how long is the snippet of audio that's going to bounce back at you. And you've got regen, which is kind of like feedback in that how many times, with what force is it going to reverberate back at you. So I could turn up the regen. Now it happens a lot versus if it's down. Up. And of course I can mess with delay time. You can get wacky type of sounds too. And if you're not careful, it will self-oscillate on you. So we've heard how the MXR itself does it. Let's talk about how the Zoom is accomplishing it. It has, and I don't know if you can see the display with this camera, but it has basically a graphic overlay of what they call a carbon delay. So it's a copy of the carbon copy, right? And the same effects, delay, regen, mix, just in a different order. So I can go in here and affect the knobs, and if I turn it to something that's a lot like how it currently is, on the actual pedal, the MXR sounds like, and the Zoom sounds like. So you can hear that kind of dying out or degradation of the degrading of the sound as it reverberates out. And again, it kind of has the same thing where you can make it go more times, affect the delay time. Whatever it's doing, it must be trying to emulate that sound the MXR does of that kind of signal dying out, giving it a warmer kind of a tone. It is worth noting that in this delay type, the longest you can really get is this. That's the longest snippet of audio you can really achieve. It's because things were kind of limited with an analog setup. You can't store the same amount of audio that you could with a digital setup. One thing that's interesting to note too, on the MXR, there's this mod button, which essentially takes the parameters and starts moving them against each other to give you a kind of weird spacey, warbly, chorusy effect. Sadly, on this pedal, I bought it and the button had broken off, so I have to use the screwdriver to turn it on, but now it's on, so it sounds like this. Got that kind of chorusy tail to it. And sure enough, the Zoom has the same mod parameter too. It's also interesting to note that on the Zoom pedal you have width and speed controls, which exist on the MXR, but you actually have to unscrew the back plate and mess with two little trim pots to do these parameters, so it's kind of nicer having on the front panel. Okay, we've talked about the Zoom. Let's run by the Digitech. This is the delay pedal that came out several years ago. And just like old classic old Boss pedals and things of that nature, it has a bunch of different delay kind of algorithms that it can reproduce. And one is analog, again targeting that sound of the sound sort of dying out each time it reverberates or each time it sounds again. So it sounds like this. And it's got the same kind of controls with feedback and delay time. So if we add these things all together, I'm going to turn off the modulation so it's just straight the analog delay. You've got everything from the MXR to the Zoom to the Digitech. And I mean, you can get spacier type of sounds. So which do you like best? Do you think that the MXR really shines through and you can tell it's an analog delay? Do you think that the other pedals do a good enough job? A few things to point out. The MXR, of course, is not a cheap pedal. I mean, it's over $100 new, and it is a kind of a one-trick pony. All it does is analog delay, and that's all it's designed to do. The Zoom, of course, has tons and tons and tons of different emulations inside of it for a price that's cheaper than the MXR. Plus, it can do things like tap tempo, and it's a tuner. There's all kinds of different effects besides just delay in there. The Digitech pedal, of course, can do tap tempo, has a bunch of different algorithms, So there's a lot more flexibility with these two other kind of digital based solutions. But I will say in this room to my ears when I listen to these pedals up against each other, I think, for my 2 cents, I think I can hear the difference with the carbon copy. There is that kind of almost indescribable organicness that comes through with an analog circuit that I just don't know if these guys really. It sounds a little colder than the MXR does. I don't know if you can ever truly, completely, 100% emulate what the analog circuit's doing. Now, I will say that said, the Zoom and the Digitech both, I would say, get between 85 to 90% of the way there with all those extra features and costing less than the MXR. So you have to ask yourself, is the money worth it to you? Would you pay extra for the real analog circuit, or does having a digital solution, is that good enough? Leave your comments and answers in the comments below. I'd love to hear what everyone thinks. Can you hear the difference? Do you have interest, or do you have experience with these effects? What kind of delay pedals do you like using? If you like these videos, please drop me a like or subscribe, and that'll allow me to do more videos, and let me know what you might like to see next. Until then, I'm gonna mess around. I'm gonna stack all these delays on top of each other and see how weird we can make this sound. And I hope you stay awesome. Keep rocking.